Energy is at the front of everyone's minds today in Hungary. The nuclear power station is powering down, but also gas prices are pretty high. So let's have a look at a few places and see where they stand. Here at MOL it is 5.98 for regular 95 and 6.53 for diesel. Here at OMV it's 6.53 for diesel and 5.99 for super 95. Meanwhile at Orlen it is 6.49 for diesel and 5.97 for normal 95. So those are the prices at the pump. They're all around 600 forints for normal unleaded 95 at the moment. But the pressing matter in Hungary at the moment has to do with electricity and our electricity grid, specifically because the shutoff that is impending to do with our nuclear power station in Paks, a city about 100 kilometers south of Budapest. So in a press conference earlier today, our Prime Minister Peter Magyar said that it is now basically guaranteed that next week Paks will go offline. The nuclear power station will stop operations. It will sort of power down for the first time in its 44-year history. Now, there are sort of backups. Hungary is buying electricity from abroad, looking to work with partners and relationships that hopefully Peter Magyar has worked to cultivate, specifically with Austria and maybe Slovakia. But we've been told that in an extreme emergency, Hungary's rotational power disconnection scheme will work as follows, and that is called the rotációs kikapcsolási rend, otherwise known as the RKR. Now, it's not a simultaneous nationwide blackout. The national electricity load is divided into 18 roughly equal-sized groups. They don't tell us where these groups are for a number of reasons. This is internal only to them. Plus, the way that these groups are made up of can actually change. The groups are based on the technical structure of the distribution network and not necessarily on administrative borders like towns or counties. So neighboring streets can therefore belong to different groups. So how these cutoffs might work if we get there. Mavir, which is the transmission system operator, can order the scheme, and the local distribution companies carry out the actual switching. Groups are disconnected in a predetermined rotational sequence, and each disconnection period lasts a maximum of 3 hours. Now, after one group or set of groups is restored, the next group in the sequence is then switched off. The number of groups affected and how frequently the rotation occurs depend on the size of the power shortage. A smaller shortfall may require fewer groups or less frequent switching. A larger shortfall involves more groups or faster rotation. Not everything, though, is going to be shut off. There are some so-called protected, otherwise known as basic users. These include hospitals and emergency medical facilities, ambulance stations, critical water supply systems, social and residential care institutions, certain telecommunications and control centers, and other infrastructure essential to the functioning of the country. And now the next question, of course, is when would it be used? Well, only after other measures have been exhausted, mobilizing power plant reserves, increasing electricity imports, voluntary, then mandatory reductions by large industrial consumers, and other technical options. There is no detailed public list mapping specific streets, towns, or individual services to the 18 numbered groups, and the exact groups and sequence are determined by the network operators on technical grounds. So this is quite worrying, but I'm glad that there is a plan. The fact that if we do get to the point where there are blackouts, they only last for 3 hours at a time, in some sense that's sort of reassuring, because going without power for 3 hours is not such a pain. One of my good friends, he's a doctor in Norway, and he spent time in Malawi just 6 months ago. He was there for half a year, and he said that the power situation in Malawi was shocking. That the electricity would effectively come and go at random. When the electricity would get shut off, you'd never know when it would get turned back on. So things, of course, could be much, much worse. The weather shows no sign of let up, There's no rain forecast for any time in the near future. The heat wave, the second heat wave we've had here in Hungary, has just begun to kick in. I am sitting in a square outside. I am sweating. It is 38 degrees. Of course, we all know that in Budapest, because of I'm assuming all the concrete, all the buildings, it's much warmer here generally than elsewhere outside in the countryside. We have an issue with the amount of water we have. The authorities have already asked for people to start not using so much water. Not here in Budapest, actually, not yet, but in a town called Szentendre, which is a small little town just north of Budapest, a place where in the olden days people used to have sort of summer homes. It's quite a nice place. They've asked residents there to be very careful with the amount of water they use. Again, because I'm Hungarian, I understand that a lot of people are just going to simply ignore this advice from the government and just keep on doing what they're doing, because that's generally how Hungarians are. They're hate it or like it, it's just how they are. But anyway, that's how things are at the moment. The nuclear power station is going to be shut off next week. That's seemingly guaranteed now. The Danube levels continue to fall. We have no rainfall anytime in the future. Let's see how things go. Meanwhile, culture is not out of the spotlight. Just yesterday we have news that the Opera House is effectively going to be audited to see what they've been doing with their funds. This is sort of a welcome, honestly, from my part. The Opera House receives a shit ton of funding, and effectively it exists to subsidize foreigners who come here and go and like opera. Every time I go to the Opera House, more than half of the people there seem to be tourists, so I don't believe it should have anywhere near the subsidies and support that it gets from the government. However, I also don't believe that this will find anything really untoward. When Ervin Nagy, an actor who is now a state secretary for culture, he announced that the Opera House would sort of be audited or investigated, whichever word you want to use. The head of the Opera House, who is a man called Szilveszter Orkovács, he's a former opera singer. Yeah, my opinion of him is that if you take a job and you suddenly become mega fat while you're in that job is either too easy or you're doing too well or it's paying you too much, because you shouldn't gain 30% of your body weight while doing a job. Call me fattest, I don't care. So they're going to investigate the Opera House. The Opera House 15 years ago was quite dodgy when it came to bills and to services. They had 6,500 different companies or people who were doing services from them, from whom they were buying stuff. Now, I don't care what you are. There's no way you need to buy from 6,500 different vendors to support your institute. That's nonsense. So I'll be interested to see what they find. I'm sure they won't find much. I'm sure, though, there is a lot of pork you can cut, because the Opera House seems to be run like that. Apparently they have 1,100 employees. That seems like a lot to me. Most of those, I'm sure, are in technical positions or in clerical positions. So we'll see where that leads. However, again, I would say that I would like the Opera House to lose funding. If you're getting a ton of subsidies and your ticket prices are absolutely unaffordable for the average Hungarian, and the only people who go are foreigners and tourists, then what's the point of having it around? Then just keep the prices as super high as they were, don't have any subsidies, and the foreigners will still go because they want to have a night at the opera. If you like my stuff, give me a like, give me a share.